Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. Yunche's entire body emitted a shocking hostile air. He was indeed enraged. Skywolf Slash was his strongest killing blow, and its power far surpassed Overlord's Fury and Falling Moon Sinking Star. Before today, every single time Skywolf Slash was unleashed, it would always break through anything, and no one could blunt its edge. But today, his Skywolf Slash was completely suppressed for the first time, and he was even smashed down into the ground in an utterly tattered state. Wounds of various sizes on his body added up to over 30, and even his innards had taken substantial damage. "I will kill you right now." Purgatory. With a loud roar, Yunche's eyes were suddenly shrouded by a layer of blood-red light. Instantly, all the wounds on his body burst open as blood sprayed out in all directions. His profound energy aura had also sharply surged at this moment. Just as Fen Yijue and Fen Xia were about to attack again, they suddenly felt the change in the aura coming from Yunche's body, and were simultaneously taken aback. During the fight earlier, he had clearly used all his strength, and even continuously received injuries. But the aura now had actually rose sharply at this time, to an extent that made even Fen Yijue feel deep awe. Could it be that he used some kind of forbidden secret arts? Fen Xia said with a solemn voice. It should be so. Perhaps he had ignited his blood essence. If it's like that, then he ought to be near his wit's end. Finish him right now. After a short while of stalling, the two great thrones simultaneously let out a low roar and two burning heaven marks descended from the sky, falling toward the top of Yunche's head. This time, Yunche didn't dodge. Instead, he suddenly went toward the two burning heaven prints and jumped straight up, as Dragon Fault fiercely smashed onto them. With a loud bang, the two burning heaven prints that carried a frightening might were completely torn apart like two sheets of thin paper the moment they touched Dragon Fault. Yunche's body was only slightly stalled for a bit, then kept going up. Within Fen Yijue and Fen Xia's suddenly restricting pupils, he directly rushed to their front. Between them, there were not even 10 meters of distance left. A pair of eyes filled with endless malice, killing intent, and viciousness firmly locked onto Fen Yijue and Fen Xia, making even them, as thrones, feel a chill through their entire body. Just as they were about to act, their chests suddenly felt stuck, and a heavy sense of suffocation came over. Even their brains had suddenly felt a very severe dizziness. Their bodies that originally were supposed to move suddenly seemed as if they were frozen in ice, unable to move for a long time. What suppressed their movements was a surge of an extremely terrifying energy pressure that was violently colliding. Yunche's hands tightly gripped the Dragon Fault. His arms had already inflated to twice the normal size as streams after streams of blood fiercely shot out. The eye white and pupil in his eyes had completely vanished, and what replaced them were two eyes that had completely turned blood red. A wave of malicious and savage aura that felt as if it had come from purgatory was also abruptly unleashed at this instant. Destroying sky, decimating earth. Boom! The entire Blue Fire City was completely enveloped within booming rumbles. As though the heavens and earth were collapsing, all other sounds were thoroughly engulfed. Blue Fire City fiercely shook, and several kilometers of land was directly flipped flying. Shattered stones and sand were swept to nearly a kilometer in the air, almost touching the tattered clouds in the sky. In the surrounding area, the ears of all of the spectators instantly went deaf. No matter the elders of Burning Heaven clan or those ordinary Blue Fire citizens, they were all swept up by a completely irresistible storm and were blasted out very far into the distance. Endless fright appeared on the faces of everyone present. The terrifying extent of this power surpassed the common sense of every one of them. Even Fen Yijue and Fen Xia had never seen such a terrifying strength in their lives. They simply couldn't imagine what this young man, who was not even 20 years old, used to unleash such a terrifying power. Destroying sky, decimating earth, evil god Aati's third style, which was also a move that Yunche had to pay a heavy price to execute. He exhausted his profound energy and even his life to unleash this ultimate destructive killing move. Back then during the ranking tournament, when facing Xie Qingyu whose overall strength surpassed himself, he used this move for the first time. And the second time he used it was against two great Emperor Profound Realms. And its terror simply couldn't be endured, even if it was two great thrones. Amidst the matchless terrifying storm of destruction, Fen Yijue and Fen Xia flew out like two kites cut from their strings. The fronts of their chests were both badly mutilated, as if they had exploded. However, as thrones, even though they were heavily injured, it wasn't to the extent that they would just die from this. As they flew backwards, they desperately concentrated their utterly chaotic profound energy in order to suppress the stage of injuries on their body. And at this time, as the fine sand that blotted the skies dispersed, the crowd saw a streak of a scarlet flame silhouette that was like a meteor crossing the sky suddenly rush toward Fenzia. Its speed actually surpassed Fenzia, who was being blasted flying by destroying sky decimating Earth. Empyrean Dance of the Phoenix. Yunche's eyes carried a vicious glint. The profound energy on his body was chaotic but also wild like boiling water. Following an enormous sound, Dragonfolt heavily smashed onto Fenzia's body within his despairing eyes as a ball of raging phoenix flames exploded on his body. When you go to hell, don't forget to tell your ancestors that the one who killed you guys, who destroyed your Burning Heaven clan, is called Yunche. Yunche's voice, which was cold to the point that it directly seeped into his marrow and soul, resounded beside his ears. Right after that, Fenzia's consciousness became completely blank as his body plummeted down like a cannonball while carrying burning phoenix flames. Under the oppositional force of the Empyrean Dance of the Phoenix, Yunche was blown off into the high skies. Staring at Fenzia's landing point, he poured the last of his power into Dragonfolt. Phoenix! Break! Dragonfolt's entire body burned with flames, left Yunche's hands and broke through the air, violently penetrating Fenzia, who had just fell onto the ground, still with one last breath of life left. The rampaging energy flooded into his body and rendered his innards into paste. Fenzia's eyes bulged outwards, but he was no longer able to let out one last scream as he lost all sound and life, dying just like that with his eyes wide open. A generation of Emperor Profound had just died under Yunche's sword here and now. Yunche's body freefalled from the sky. The him right now was already weak and limp to the extent that he didn't have a single hint of strength left. The 3 gates on his profound veins had also automatically closed. The injuries on his body also made his brain feel waves after waves of dizziness. After taking one last glance at Fen Ijue, who fell over a kilometer away, he said with a hoarse voice, "Little Chan. Let's go." The snow phoenix beast flew out from the profound seal, caught the falling Yunche, surged up in the air and flew far away. A few elders of Burning Heaven clan wanted to chase them, but how was the snow phoenix's speed something they could catch up to? They could only watch as the snow phoenix quickly disappear from their line of sight with a speed that far surpassed their own. Grand Elder! Grand Elder! Yet when they came over to Fenzia's body, they found that all of his organs were already completely destroyed. He did not have the slightest signs of life left at all. The few elders all felt their vision go dark. They almost fainted on the spot, their mouths were more so uttering sorrowful and bereaved cries. The Grand Elder tragically dying. This was something that had never happened in the Burning Heaven clan's history. Even an Emperor Profound expert being killed was something that had almost never happened in the entire history of the Blue Wind Empire. This was because the Emperor Profound realm was the pinnacle of the Blue Wind in a true sense. Upon reaching this realm, it would already be enough to look down on the world, unparalleled. If 2 were both at Emperor Profound realm, perhaps one could be defeated, but basically couldn't be killed. Fen Ijue's profound strength was 2 ranks above Fenzia, and though he could defeat Fenzia, but it would be extremely difficult for Fen Ijue to kill him. The core reason why the 4 major sects could stand tall within the Blue Wind Empire for so many years was because of the thrones that existed within these 4 major sects. Even though the Sky Profound realm was an extremely high realm within the Blue Wind's profound cultivating world, it certainly wasn't something that only the 4 major sects could foster. Many very powerful great sects of Blue Wind Empire could all produce Sky Profound experts, including even the Blue Wind Profound Palace, which possessed several Sky Profound experts. But strong beings of the Emperor Profound realm had always, and only, appeared within the 4 major sects. Emperor Profound experts possessed by the 4 major sects were their sect's genuine and true foundation and guardian. For every extra throne that a sect had, it would mean that the entire sect's strength would be raised up a level. This was also why the other 3 sects' reactions were so fierce when Chu Yuchen displayed her strength of a throne during the ranking tournament back then. Vice versa, if a throne fell, then the entire sect's position would slide down vertically. The true threatening power between the 4 major sects had always came from experts of Emperor Profound realm. Losing one would be losing a large amount of threat. Even though Yunche had killed over 30 elders and pavilion masters of the Sky Profound realm, this absolutely could not be compared to having destroyed Burning Heaven clan's foundation. Given a few dozen of years, Burning Heaven clan would be able to nurture up a few dozens of Sky Profound practitioners again. With the Grand Clan Master and Grand Elder in garrison, no sect within the Blue Wind Empire would have the guts to step in when they were weak, because a desperate fight with 2 thrones was enough to even make a colossus like Heavenly Sword Villa pay an enormous price. The tragical death of Grand Elder was an extremely heavy impact to the entire Burning Heaven clan. They had never thought, and never believed, that Yunche actually had the power to actually kill their sect's Grand Elder. Burning Heaven clan elders who kneeled beside Fen Xia's corpse were all sullen and weeping. Fen Yijue, who was heavily injured, finally was able to catch a breath for the better. With a ghastly complexion, he covered his chest with his hand, and said with a frail voice, "How is Xia?" The Burning Heaven elder beside him had an old face full of tears as he answered with a hoarse voice, "Grand Elder. Grand Elder, he has gone to heaven." Fen Yijue's entire body went stiff, then violently started to tremble. Looking at the Fen Xia's corpse far away, his ghastly pale lips shivered as he spoke, "Take me back to the sect." PFF. A large mouthful of fresh blood violently sprayed out from Fen Yijue's mouth. Amidst the alarmed cries of the elders, his head slanted to the side as he fainted on the spot. Along with Snow Phoenix Beast, Yunche had gone far away, and no one knew where they were at now. While carrying the unconscious Fen Duanhuan and Fen Yijue, as well as Fen Xia's corpse, Burning Heaven clan's various elders flew toward Burning Heaven clan's direction with gloomy expressions. Only a crowd of spectators who couldn't bring themselves back into reality from the endless shock was left. Many of them were lightly or heavily injured by the residual waves, but they couldn't feel the pain on their bodies at all because their heads were completely filled with the scenes they had personally witnessed earlier. Blue Fire City's 60-meter wide and 30-meter tall stone gate had vanished. An extensive part of the city walls collapsed. A large stretch of land south of the city was destroyed to the extent that it was unspeakably miserable, as though it had just underwent an Armageddon. Enormous pits were scattered all over like the stars in the night sky, the largest being more than 100 meters deep and over 300 meters wide. The clothes worn by Blue Fire City's mayor had long since been completely soaked wet. Blue Fire City's front had finally returned to peace, but his heart was still beating as if it was going to jump out of his chest. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead with force. He was extremely certain that Blue Fire City would become the focus of the entire Blue Wind Empire for a very long period of time from now on. A huge change in the wind would also sweep across the entire nation very soon. Today's Burning Heaven clan was no longer as majestic and dignified as before. Especially when the news of their Grand Clan Master being gravely wounded and Grand Elder Fen Xia dying in Yunche's hands came, the entire Burning Heaven clan was enveloped in a terrified atmosphere. The clan's disciples were panicky, and amidst the unease in their hearts and mind, they all faintly smelled the odor of destruction. Even if this catastrophe stopped here and now, from now on, Burning Heaven clan wouldn't be qualified at all to maintain the title of 4 major sects on the same level as Heavenly Sword Villa, Frozen Cloud Asgard, and Xiao Sect. In the Burning Heaven main pavilion, Fen Yijue had just woke up. Fen Duanhuan and every elder and pavilion master that were left had all gathered here. Everyone's faces were all completely filled with gloominess and grief. Every single time they fought Yunche, they would always discover that they had once again underestimated Yunche's strength. Every single time when they thought with full confidence that they could definitely kill Yunche, the other side would give them a nightmarish result. And the name Yunche had now already become the most frightening nightmare in their hearts as well. "Father, how are your injuries?" Fen Duanhuan took a step forward and asked. His voice revealed a deep feeling of powerlessness. To him, the only thing that could be considered as comforting was that Yunche had similarly received heavy injuries. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to flee immediately. Not to the point of dying yet. Cough, cough, cough. The moment Fen Yijue opened his mouth, he started coughing fiercely for a while. Every single cough would carry out pieces after pieces of blood. That one, destroying sky decimating earth, move from Yunche easily shattered all of his profound strength defense, making all of his internal organs shift greatly and get damaged. The state of injury was so serious that even with the power of the Emperor Profound Realm, it would still take at least 3 months to completely recover. Grand Clan Master, the few elders hastily got up and encircled Fen Yijue's side. "Do not mind me, I'm fine." Fen Yijue conjured profound energy to suppress the injuries, then raised his head as his gaze revealed deep viciousness and coldness. "I have wrongly estimated Yunche's strength. Every one of us had wrongly estimated his strength. And you guys actually brought about such an enemy." All the elders drooped their heads down. Their complexions were at times ghastly pale, and at times ashen. Fen Yijue's chest undulated as he continued speaking with a solemn tone. "Many things on Yunche cannot be measured using common sense. In the previous days, he clearly had left with heavy injuries, but within just 1 day, both his injuries and strength had actually completely recovered. He must have some special secret arts for recovering from injuries. This time, he didn't receive a lighter injury than me, but he perhaps could still be the same as last time, and recover in a very short period of time. When that time comes, it will be the day that my Burning Heaven clan perishes. The moment Fen Ijua spoke these words, everyone's complexion instantly turned yellowish-brown. These words did not come from someone else, but were personally said by the Grand Clan Master himself. And what he said was also the cruel truth that couldn't be refuted at all. Grand Elder had fallen, Heaven Fire Star Burning Formation was destroyed, and Grand Clan Master was gravely wounded. If Yunche assaulted them again, they really wouldn't be able to bring out anything worthy to oppose him. Father, at the moment, just what exactly should we do? How can our Burning Heaven clan's 1,000 years of groundwork be destroyed just like that? Otherwise, what face will we have when we meet our generations of ancestors in the world of the dead? Fen Duanhuan clenched his fists tight and said. At the moment, there are two solutions. Fen Ijua said. Fen Duanhuan and the elders instantly rallied their spirits. Hope was revealed on their faces once again as they asked anxiously, What? What solutions? Fen Ijua let out a long breath, and slowly spoke with a low voice. In this disaster, we are already covered in wounds, no longer with the power to defend. At the moment, we could only seek help from others. And with Yunche's strength, only Heavenly Sword Villa, Frozen Cloudus Guard and Xiao Sect would have the power to solve this calamity. Frozen Cloudus Guard doesn't have any enmity nor benevolence with us, and never liked to take part in disputes, thus, seeking help from Frozen Cloudus Guard would bear no fruit. Then we could only seek help from Heavenly Sword Villa and Xiao Sect. I had a period of deep friendship with Heavenly Sword Villa's Grand Villa Master Ling Qianni, and there was a time when we drank. I had laughingly said that if Burning Heaven clan were to encounter despair, I hoped he would definitely lend us a hand, and at that time he also laughingly consented. Ling Qianni? The publicly recognized #1 Blue Wind's profound cultivating world, Sword Saint Ling Qianni. This name thunderously resounded beside everyone's ears, causing all of their faces to reveal joyous surprise. They had never expected that Fen Ijua actually had such a friendship with this Blue Wind #1, and even had a promise to help when Burning Heaven clan meets disaster. If Ling Qianni were to really lend a hand and act, then Burning Heaven clan's disaster would be undoubtedly be resolved here and then. Even though Yunche was unexpectedly powerful, he couldn't be Ling Qianni's match no matter what. Moreover, behind Ling Qianni's back was the enormous Heavenly Sword Villa. All right. I understand. I'll sound transmit to Heavenly Sword Villa's Villa Master Ling Yifeng right away. And ask him to pass the message on to Heavenly Sword's Grand Villa Master. Fen Duanhuan said somewhat excitedly. Don't get happy yet. Fen Ijua slowly spoke. Ling Qianni and I had not met for a few dozen years. His disposition had always been indifferent, and after cultivating away from the world for 20 years, perhaps his heart is already empty, and doesn't want to touch worldly matters anymore. Whether he would be willing to assist is unknown. As for Xiao Sect, even though I had some friendship with Xiao Wuqing back then, it was far from intimate. If Xiao Sect knew of Yunche's strength, then they certainly shouldn't want to offend such a terrifying enemy for us. Even though we could try both of these methods, hope is vague. Without trying, how would we know it wouldn't work? Fen Duanhuan's brows were tightly knitted, but his expression no longer had its previous sullenness. I am not sure whether the Sword Saint would act, but on Xiao Sect's side they would definitely lend their hand. Fen Ijua turned his head and looked at him. A puzzled expression emerged on his face. Fen Duanhuan said immediately, when investigating everything about Yunche before, we have unintentionally discovered that the core reason why he was chased out of his home was because he was prosecuted by Xiao Sect Master Xiao Juetian's fourth son, Xiao Kuangyun. Because Xiao Kuangyun had wanted to seize his wife back then, and at the same time, wanted to lay his hands on his aunt. The expression in Fen Ijua's eyes swayed. There was actually such a thing. There was indeed. Fen Duanhuan nodded. Yunche swore to destroy our Burning Heaven clan just because we kidnapped his family. It can be seen that he is a person that views his family with extreme importance, and at the same time an extremely narrow-minded person that would take revenge on any small grievances. And such a great enmity had formed between Xiao Kuangyun and him, so how could he not get his vengeance? If Xiao Kuangyun was just an ordinary Xiao Sect disciple, then that would be fine and all, but he is the Sect Master's son. Just this would be enough to transform into a grievance between Yunche and the entire Xiao Sect. But it seems that the current Xiao Sect had not yet noticed this. If Xiao Sect knew about this and also knew about Yunche's personality of seeking revenge on the smallest grievances. If I was Xiao Juetian, I'll definitely not choose to sit and wait for Yunche to come visit them while feeling uneasy when eating and sleeping. Instead, I'll take the chance to join forces and strike out to kill Yunche right now. I'll go sound transmit to Heavenly Sword Villa and Xiao sect right away. At the same time, within the Xiao sect. What did you say? Is this really true? Xiao Juetian spoke in a shocked tone and stood up. Absolutely true. Several tens of thousand people at Blue Fire City witnessed the battle with their own eyes, and very soon, no one would be ignorant about this within the Blue Wind. Ahead of Xiao Juetian, an elderly person said with a serious expression. This really is hard to believe. I remember when he was at the ranking tournament, he was only 17 back then. Today, he ought to be no older than 19, right? The shocked expression on Xiao Juetian's face didn't disperse for a long while. It was difficult for him to believe that this young man of only 19 could actually almost force Burning Heaven clan, whose strength wasn't much weaker than Xiao sect, into a state of despair with his strength alone. Moreover, when fighting against two great Emperor Profound simultaneously, he had actually killed one at the scene. How terrifying of a strength was this? How shocking of a news was this? I really wonder just what kind of master could actually bring up such a disciple. Or is it that his aptitude was really prodigiously talented to this extent? Or maybe, he was really, as rumored, a descendant of the sacred grounds. Xiao Juetian exclaimed. He suddenly asked, Yunche insisting on annihilating the entire Burning Heaven clan, just what deep grievances did it stem from? Don't tell me that Burning Heaven clan exterminated his entire clan. No. The elderly person shook his head. The true reason, perhaps sect master would find it laughable. Fen Juecheng back then wished to take Princess Tsungyue as bride, but was crushed upon by Yunche, and lost a great amount of face. Burning Heaven clan wished to find Yunche for revenge, seemed to be overly hasty, and thus used the despicable method of kidnapping two of his family members from Floating Cloud City, where Yunche was born in order to lure him to go to Burning Heaven clan. Because of this, Yunche was tremendously enraged, and swore to destroy Burning Heaven clan. HMPH, Burning Heaven clan actually used such an utterly contemptible method. Xiao Juetian coldly grunted with disdain. Could it be that his two family members were slaughtered by Burning Heaven clan? No. Both his family members were safe and sound. But just because Burning Heaven clan abducted his family members, he wished to exterminate their entire clan. The elderly person raised his head, and said with a cautious tone, clearly, this is a person that could seek revenge on any small enmity, and would become like a madman once he harbors a grudge. We definitely can't provoke him. Of course we can't provoke him. Xiao Juetian nodded. A person that could force Burning Heaven clan into a desperate state by himself, who even has an extremely terrifying speed of growth. Even if we can't be friends, we absolutely can't make him into an enemy. In tomorrow's morning meeting, remember to announce to the entire sect that whenever we meet Yunche or anyone related to him from now on, everyone have to keep a good distance from them. Even if one was to act weak, he absolutely can't offend him. As one of the four overlords of Blue Wind, Xiao sect had never needed to fear anyone on the outside. But Burning Heaven clan's blooded example made him unable to not birth a deep dread toward Yunche, even to the point of fear and awe. At this time, an elderly person in black attire hastily entered, and said with an urgent tone, Sect Master, Fen Duanhuan has just sound transmitted to us, asking on the part that since Burning Heaven clan had always been on friendly terms with our sect, to please assist them in defending against Yunche. Hearing this, Xiao Juetian didn't feel surprised. He laughed indifferently, and said, no need to mind it. My Xiao sect and Burning Heaven clan's friendship is not good to the point where would provoke a person that may bring annihilation upon the sect. But, the black-attired elderly person said with difficulty as he forcefully gulped down a mouthful of saliva, Fen Duanhuan said, he said that Burning Heaven clan would encounter the revenge of having their entirely clan annihilated just because they had kidnapped his family, then Yunche's enmity against us would be hundreds of times deeper. If we don't lend a hand to them after Burning Heaven clan was annihilated, then it would be our Xiao sect's turn. Xiao Juetian's brows fiercely knitted, a bunch of nonsense. My Xiao sect and Yunche never had any grudges and ill will. Where did the enmity come from? To make us act, even retarded words of such a low level could actually come out of Fen Duanhuan's mouth. Black-attired elderly man wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, as his voice started to tremble. Sect Master, do you still remember, that 3 years ago before Elder Xiaosheng passed away, he thought constantly of that thread of bloodline he left in Floating Cloud City, and begged Sect Master to take a person back to Xiao sect. And back then, the person Sect Master sent was the youngest master. At that time, the one that accompanied youngest master there was East Pavilion's bolter, Xiao Mo's Han. When youngest master came back, Xiao Mozhan had told me before that when youngest master was there, he had plotted a frame up against a young disciple there in order to lay a hand on his newlywed wife and his aunt, and even forced that person to be forever exiled from his home in the end. And that person is today's Yun Che. As the black-attired elderly person spoke out the last sentence, it was as if a bomb had went off within Xiao Juetian's head. He instantly stood up with his entire body trembling all over, as all the muscles on his face violently twisted together. What did you say? This matter is the genuine truth. What Fen Duanhuan had said is almost exactly the same as what Xiao Mozhan had described to me. 3 years ago, Yun Che's name wasn't Yun Che, but Xiao Che. He only changed his name after he was exiled from his home. He was the one that youngest master. Enough. Xiao Juetian was so angry that his entire body was shaking. His eyes were almost spewing out fire. Just a moment ago, he was still extremely shocked about Yun Che's matter, and was also somewhat gloating over Burning Heaven Clan's miserable encounter. But in just the blink of an eye, he had heard such a bolt from the blue. If this was real, and if Yun Che really was the person at that time, then the matter back then would undoubtedly be his teeth-grinding hatred. This resentment would at least far surpass kidnapping his family members. Burning Heaven Clan was met with the revenge of clan annihilation because they abducted 2 of his family members, and if these were all true. The news of Yun Che heavily injuring Fen Yijue and killing Fen Zia all alone resounded once again within Xiao Juetian's brain, and even caused him, who was the master of the sect, to uncontrollably shiver. Even though Fen Zia was slightly weak within the Emperor Profound, Fen Yijue, on the other hand, was a being whose strength was completely even with Xiao Sect's Grand Sect Master Xiao Wuqing. Right now, he entirely had the ability to avenge the grudge back then, and with that disposition of his, visiting their doorsteps was almost certain. Immediately. Go call that Xiao Mozhan here. Fen Juetian said while grinding his teeth, as his expression darkened. Yes, Sect Master. The black-attired elderly person didn't dare to say half a word more, and hastily left. Very soon, Xiao Mozhan walked in with hasty steps. For the sect master to actually summon an East Pavilion butler like him, made him both uneasy and confused. The moment he entered the main pavilion, he saw Xiao Juetian's expression that was as sullen as rain clouds. His heart instantly thumped, and he carefully spoke with his head lowered. Xiao Mozhan greets sect master. May I ask what sect master is Simone? Xiao Mo Shan. These 3 words that spewed out from Xiao Juetian's mouth clearly carried a tremble of extreme rage, and made cold sweat instantly pop out of Xiao Moshan's entire body. He had always been honest and well-behaved within the sect, and never did any disobedient things. He simply couldn't think of anything at all that could actually make sect master be so enraged. He heard Xiao Juetian's overcast voice speak. Do you still remember 3 years ago, because of Elder Xiaoshan's entrustment before he passed away, you accompanied Kuan Yin to a place called Floating Cloud City in the east? Xiao Mozhan raised his head, and nodded dumbfoundedly. Yes, Mozhan naturally remembers. Mozhan had only gone out of the sect 3 times in all these years, and one of them was accompanying youngest master to Floating Cloud City. The inside of Xiao Moshan's heart was even more astonished. Because that was truly a matter so insignificant that it wasn't worth mentioning. If one had to say something that was worth mentioning, it would be that they had actually unintentionally encountered someone of the Frozen Cloud as guard. And it was even the fairy of frozen glass, Chu Yueli of the Frozen Cloud 7 fairies. He couldn't understand just why Sect Master would even mention such an insignificant matter after 3 years. Xiao Juetian firmly locked his gaze on him, and said solemnly, what exactly had happened after you and Kuan Yin went to Floating Cloud City? I want you to speak without omitting any details. With your memory and profound strength, it's not yet to the extent that you'd forget things after a mere 3 years. Tell me everything from start to finish. If you dare to omit or hide anything, I'll blow your head off on the spot. Xiao Juetian's last sentence instantly made Xiao Moshan's sweat flow down like rain. He truly noticed the importance of this matter and hastily kneeled down to the ground. Yes. Back then, after youngest master and I went to Floating Cloud City. At once, Xiao Moshan recited everything that happened 3 years ago at Xiao Clan, including any words and movement he could remember Xiao Kuan-Yin doing as exact as he could. Under Xiao Juetian's gaze that was as sharp as the edge of a knife, he didn't dare to hide anything at all as he desperately tried to recall everything. Within this, naturally included the complete process of Xiao Kuan-Yin fancying Xiao Che's newlywed wife and his little aunt, plotting an insidious scheme with Xiao Yulong and the others, then being exposed by Yun Che before everyone, but still forcefully had his way and exiled Xiao Che from Xiao Clan because of Xiao Kuan-Yin having Xiao Sect's absolute coercion. Before Xiao Mozhan had finished speaking, Xiao Juetian's entire body was already shaking, his lungs even almost exploding. The last sliver of fluke mentality in his heart completely vanished as he lost control of his voice and roared, "This sinful swine, actually had committed such a scandalous act. Youngest master is young and frivolous, and was at the age of having lustful thoughts. To do things like this was also understandable. It's Mozhan who's not strict enough, and relaxed his restraint toward youngest master. Mozhan is willing to receive any punishment from sect master." Xiao Mozhan drooped down his head and said regretfully, but the confusion in his heart also became deeper and deeper. Out of Xiao Juetian's 4 sons, Feng, Yu, Lei, and Yun, Xiao Kuangyun was the only one who was born from his legal wife. Because he had been grown up being spoiled, he drowned himself in carnal pleasures all day long, and Xiao Juetian had just let it go unchecked. Things like laying his hand on other people's wives, Xiao Kuangyun did many times, and after Xiao Juetian knew, he would at most condemn him with a few words symbolically. That matter at Floating Cloud City, he didn't even get what he wanted in the end. He couldn't get just why Xiao Juetian would deliberately fly into a rage because of this small matter. Bastard! Under Xiao Juetian's rage, he knocked Xiao Mozhan back a few tumbles with a kick. "Did you know that person whose wife and aunt you guys wished to seize from, who was kicked out of Xiao clan, was precisely that Yun Che who took first place at the ranking tournament back then, who has now destroyed over half of the Burning Heaven clan alone?" Xiao Mozhan, who had just stood back up in a fluster, instantly stared with wide eyes the moment he heard this, and said with fright, Impossible. That person back then wasn't called Yun Che, but Xiao Che, and he was even a wastrel with crippled profound veins from birth. Impossible, simply impossible. Something must have been mistaken somewhere. Many things in this world won't just not happen because you think it is impossible. Xiao Juetian's chest undulated to the extent where it was almost going to burst apart. He pointed at Xiao Mozhan with his fingers. He said each of his words in a heavy tone, "You, scram right now and call Xiao Kuangyun here. Go right now." It was actually the first time he had ever heard Sect Master shouting out Xiao Kuangyun's full name. His entire body started trembling. Youngest Master he is currently. I don't care what he is doing right now. If he dares to not come, then beat him half to death and drag him here. Xiao Juetian explosively roared. Yes, carrying a full body of sweat on his back, Xiao Mozhan left as if fleeing. The elderly person who had always stayed beside Xiao Juetian walked over, and said with a solemn expression, "Sect Master, about this matter, how do you plan to respond?" Xiao Juetian's brows tightly locked together. His expression became incomparably heavy and dark. "If the rumors weren't fake, then Yun Che's strength has already reached the point that we could not help but fear it. Accompany me to meet Father. This is something that absolutely cannot be waited upon. As for how to respond, we'll need him to personally decide." In a concealed ground within a withered forest, Yun Che was currently sitting cross-legged. The snow phoenix guarded beside him, driving away all the nearby profound beasts. After an entire day of rest and Yun Che's medicinal provisions, the snow phoenix beast had finally recovered 30% of its vital energy. Yun Che's injuries had also recovered about 80%, and his profound strength 90%. And at this moment, the profound strength in his profound veins was suddenly in turmoil, and the originally tranquil profound energy surged and inflated like boiling water. This was the premonition of a profound strength breakthrough. After escaping from under Heavenly Sword Villa's sword management terrace, Yun Che continuously fled and fiercely battled. Even though he didn't deliberately train, his profound strength had unwittingly neared the edge of breaking through under the accumulation of battle. Yun Che quickly concentrated his mind right away, guiding the profound energy's movements and change. After 7 minutes had passed, a light pop sounded in his profound veins, and all of the profound energy fluctuation completely died down, becoming even thicker and richer than before. Yun Che opened his eyes. His profound strength had also completely broke through and reached the 7th level of the Earth profound realm at this moment. And to him, every single time his profound strength increases, it would be a different concept with any other ordinary profound practitioner. Under the evil god profound veins berserking amplification, for every time his profound strength makes a breakthrough, the increase in his true power would be several times greater than that of ordinary profound practitioners. Yun Che lit up the phoenix flames and roasted a pile of dragon meat. After a great feast, he changed a set of new clothes, then refreshingly stood up. If Burning Heaven clan knew that he only used a single day to recover almost all of his injuries and strength, he wondered if they would all just faint from despair. "All right. I'll thoroughly smash Burning Heaven clan into a mesh tonight." Yunche looked in Burning Heaven clan's direction and said with a cold smile, though I don't know whether they had been so scared out of their wits that they all ran away while tossing their so-called 1,000 years of heritage aside. After being forced to this extent, they must have taken actions. You'd best completely recover before going. Jasmine reminded him in an indifferent tone. If they still have any trump cards, they ought to have played them long ago. Yunche said disdainfully, the most probable action they would take right now is to abandon the sect and flee, otherwise, it would be to ask for assistance from other sects. Frozen Cloud Asgard won't bother with their request for help, and as for Xiao Sect and Heavenly Sword Villa. Yunche's brows shifted, and he suddenly recalled Ling Jie's warning yesterday. After staying silent for a bit, he sat back down on the spot. All right, you are right. I really should wait until my body completely recovers before I go. The price that they ought to pay, they'll never escape it. At the same time, a dark figure dressed entirely in black entered Burning Heaven clan without any sound. Looking at the Burning Heaven clan full of rubble in a foul atmosphere, he coldly laughed. That expression in his eyes was 50% pity and 50% gloating. He stepped forward, not making any sound below his feet, and sneaked into the main pavilion. Fen Yijue resided in the turn of an eye. Who is it? Fen Yijue, who was meditating, abruptly opened his eyes. In front of him, it wasn't known just when a black silhouette had appeared. Ha ha, old friend, long time no see, do you still recognize me? The black-clothed man raised his head up, and said while laughing. It's you. Looking at the person before his eyes, Fen Yijue quickly raised up his body. After his expression complicatedly changed for a while, he suddenly said, just you alone. Just I alone, isn't enough. The black-clothed man said arrogantly. Fen Yijue knitted his brows, and said, not enough. You clearly have completely underestimated Yunche's strength. He is much more terrifying than what you imagined. As Fen Yijue was speaking, he suddenly noticed the 3 purple-colored spatial rings on the black-clothed man's fingers, and his gaze instantly went stiff as his face revealed joyous surprise. Could it be you have even brought those things? Ha 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 ha. The black-clothed man loudly laughed with his head tilted upwards. Grand Sect Master's orders. This time, Yunche is our common enemy, he must be eliminated from this world. If he dares to come, I'll certainly make sure he doesn't leave. The 4 major sects' position as overlords in the Blue Wind Empire had never been shaken. The imposing power carried by the name of each and every one of the 4 major sects had all far surpassed that of the Blue Wind Imperial family. And today, one of the overlords that dominated the Blue Wind for 1,000 years had finally been shaken. Moreover, it was also very violently shaken, almost being pressed to the edge of total annihilation. Those sky-profound experts of the Burning Heaven clan who received countless profound practitioners or who could act without restraint in any place were exterminated by the dozen. Even the myth-like Emperor profound experts who were the foundation stones in the 4 major sects had a casualty of 1 death and 1 heavily injured. Burning Heaven clan's miserable state, as well as that battle before Blue Fire City's gate swept through the entire Blue Wind Empire like a storm. The name, Yunche, that had already brought endless amounts of shock, once again stirred the entire Blue Wind in a single night. Early morning, before the sky was fully lit, the only core characters left within Burning Heaven clan gathered in the main pavilion once again to discuss issues of importance. Outside of the main pavilion, the Burning Heaven clan's encampment that almost turned into a wasteland for nearly half of the area was in a deadly silence. Those Burning Heaven disciples, whose arrogant air had usually been overwhelming, were all listless with melancholy written all over their faces. After the news of Grand Elder turning into a lying corpse and Grand Clan Master being heavily injured spread out, the last of their psychological defense had almost completely collapsed as well. Let me introduce him to everyone. Fen Yijue was situated in the dead center. Even though he sat upright, his ghastly complexion testified the extreme severeness of the internal injuries he bore. He gestured at the black-clothed man beside him. This here is Xiao Sect Xiao Wui. Xiao Wui wore a large and spacious black-colored cloak. His face was also largely blocked by it, as if he didn't wish for his face being seen by too many people. Before Fen Yijue spoke, everyone was guessing at his identity, but the moment they heard the name, Xiao Wui, all of them stood up. Fen Duanhuan couldn't hold his voice back and spoke, so it was actually Senior Xiao Wui. This junior apologizes for his rude behavior before. Xiao Wui, Xiao Sect's Grand Sect Master Xiao Wuqing's brother of the same womb, one of the 2 great Emperor Profounds within Xiao Sect, and one of the few current top experts existing in the pinnacle level of the current Blue Wind. Perhaps the younger generation wasn't familiar with his name, but to Fen Duanhuan's generation, his name was like the rumbling of thunder through their ears. No need to speak unnecessary words. Xiao Wui said indifferently, I only have one goal for coming here this time, and that is to help you eliminate Yun Che. Fen Duanhuan took a glance at Xiao Wui, and said, Senior's strength is naturally peerless under the heavens, but please forgive this junior for being blunt. Senior had never personally witnessed Yun Che's true strength, and seems to have underestimated Yun Che. My father currently bears heavy injuries, and with only Senior alone, I'm afraid. Ha ha, Xiao Wui loftily laughed. He extended his arm, and his hand slowly opened up. Just me alone might indeed not be enough. In that case, what if this is added to the equation? After reaching Emperor Profound Realm, the aging of one's physical body would greatly decrease, and even may return to being younger. However, Xiao Wui's palm was overly withered, as if it was being permanently corroded by something. In the center of his palms, there was a light purple-colored ball. The ball-shaped object faintly glimmered with a purple glint, and if one looked closely, one would see one after another small profound formations emerging on the surface. Fen Duanhuan froze for a bit, then suddenly recalled something as the expression on his face greatly changed. And beside him, an elder had already uncontrollably shouted, could it be, the heaven-decimating orb? The moment the three words of heaven-decimating orb came out, the complexions of all the elders had all quickly changed. A few had even uncontrollably retreated backwards as their faces revealed the expressions of deep fright. Ha ha, that is correct. Xiao Wui laughed briefly. This is precisely the heaven-decimating orb from our Xiao sect's armament sect, second only to the heaven-decimating bomb. However, in terms of power to a single point, it even surpassed the heaven-decimating bomb. I believe all of you had heard of just how powerful it is. Back then, it had instantly minced a dozen Sky Profound practitioners and 2 practitioners half a step into Emperor Profound Realm. And even the surrounding Sky Profound practitioners who luckily survived at first, all died within the poisonous gas it released after exploding. One by one, all the burning heaven elders gulped down a large mouthful of saliva. The expression of fright couldn't subside from beginning to end, as their gazes even didn't dare to look straight at that heaven-decimating orb. The terror of the heaven-decimating orb could be said to be well known by everyone throughout the 4 major sects. There was a special branch sect within Xiao sect called the Armament sect. This sect specialized in forging and producing various kinds of firearms. Even though the profound strength of the Armament sect's disciples were generally very low, each and every one of them hid various kinds of terrifying firearms on their entire bodies. Even same sect disciples over a great realm above in strength wouldn't dare to offend them. And the most terrifying of all these firearms was the heaven-decimating bomb and the heaven-decimating orb. Even from my Xiao sect's 1,000 years of accumulation, there are only 23 heaven-decimating orbs. To eliminate Yun Che this time, I brought an entire 5 out. Heh, do you still think that I, alone, isn't enough? 5? Fen Duanhuan hastily said, enough. Entirely enough. With the might of your honored sect's heaven-decimating orb, at most 2, no, just 1 would be enough to kill Yun Che on the spot. Now that we have Senior assisting us this time, if Yun Che dares to come again, he'd certainly never leave alive. Please forgive this junior for the offending words earlier. Rumors say that even an Emperor Profound expert would be gravely injured instantly if he were to be frontally struck with a heaven-decimating orb. If all 5 of the heaven-decimating orbs were to really be all used, it would be completely enough to blast Yun Che into shattered pieces that couldn't be even more shattered. This time, not only was it Xiao Wui that Xiao sect had sent, he'd even brought as many as 5 heaven-decimating orbs, which was enough to see Xiao sect's resolute intentions to kill Yun Che with certainty. And at this time, the outside, which had always been silent, suddenly became clamorous as an extremely wildly arrogant voice came from the skies. Old dogs of Burning Heaven clan, your granddaddy Yun is here again. Why don't you quickly come out and receive your death? Fen Yijue stood up with a whoosh and almost fell on his knees on the spot from disturbing his internal injuries. Hearing Yun Che's shouts just now, hatred, fright, and shock creeped in his heart. And for the most part, it was shock. Not 2 days had even passed after that battle in Bluefire City. And at that time, Yun Che's injuries definitely weren't any lighter than his. But while his state of injuries had only stabilized by a little, Yun Che's roar was extremely full of energy, without any hint of unrecovered heavy injuries at all. They wouldn't be dumb to the point of thinking that just 1 more thrown would be enough to deal with me. Looks like they might be hiding some kind of underhanded trick. The cold smile on the corner of Yun Che's lips slightly curved up a little more. In the entire Blue Wind, only the 4 major sects possess thrones. Frozen Cloud Asgard wouldn't act nosy, so this suddenly appearing throne could only come from Heavenly Sword Villa and Xiao sect. I actually really hope that it's the latter. Let's see just which foolhardy person is the one who wishes to tread this muddy water no matter what. Amidst Yun Che's loud roar, Fen Duanhuan and the elders all took off from the ground, guarding the heavily injured Fen Yijue behind them. When they saw today's Yun Che, fright emerged on the faces of everyone present. On that day, they had all witnessed him fleeing away while heavily injured, exhausted of strength with their own eyes, but the current Yun Che didn't seem to have any frailness in aura nor complexion. Even his profound strength had clearly grown. Last time, he was at the 6th level of the Earth Profound Realm, but this time, he was already at the 7th level of the Earth Profound Realm. To experts of their level, the rise in a single rank of Earth Profound Realm wasn't worthy of minding at all. But the rising of a single rank in profound energy on Yun Che gave them a much greater feeling of pressure than before. The feeling that it gave them was so incredibly fierce that it made all their hearts turn cold. Not only were his injuries fully healed, his energy was fully recovered, and even his strength had appeared to have increased by a great extent. What kind of monster was he? Yun Che, your impudence will end today. Fen Duanhuan said as he gritted his teeth, the debt of you killing my son and destroying my sect, today, I'll definitely collect them without missing a single cent. Yun Che grinned, and loudly laughed with his head raised, ha 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 ha. Old dog Fen, looking at the appearance of you lot, it's simply miserable to the point of being worse than beggars on the street. I really wonder who is it that gave you the self-confidence to speak such laughable words. Could it be that fellow hiding under there? Fen Duanhuan's eyes stared round as his entire body shook from anger and hatred. Ha 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 ha, a low and deep laughter came from below. Wearing a cloak, Xiao Wui walked out of the main pavilion with a slow pace. He slightly raised his head and his eyes under the cloak glanced toward Yun Che as he spoke while laughing, so you are Yun Che. Only at this age, yet you have such an imposing manner, and had even more so pressed Burning Heaven clan to the point where they are at the end of their rope with your strength alone. They all say that you are the #1 prodigy in the Blue Wind's entire history, and it seems to not be an exaggeration. Yun Che also started to laugh, and who are you? Deliberately coming here to Burning Heaven clan, don't tell me you are just here to kiss my ass. Kiss your ass? Ha 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 ha. Xiao Wui laughed, no, I just want to tell you that things like prodigies are generally short-lived. Is that so? Yun Che's eyes slowly narrowed, even though you've made impertinent remarks toward me, I'll still benevolently gift you with a word. Oh? What word? Scram. If you scram, you'd still be able to live a few more days. If you don't, heh? Yun Che coldly laughed, together with these old dogs of Burning Heaven. Your lives would thoroughly become short. And even the Xiao sect behind your back will also become short-lived. The moment the words, Xiao sect, were spoken, Xiao Wui's aura instantly appeared a little chaotic. On one hand, wearing a cloak and covering his face was to conveniently hide firearms. After all, throwing firearms out from one's body was much quicker and agile than taking them out from spatial rings. On the other hand, it was to not reveal his identity as much as possible. Even though he had 5 heaven-decimating orbs on hand and he had great confidence in turning Yun Che into a pile of shattered corpse, Xiao sect couldn't become completely unafraid towards someone who could press Burning Heaven clan into a state of despair no matter what. Thus, when Xiao Wui came to Burning Heaven clan, he had initially planned to not let Yun Che discover his identity before he had thoroughly killed him. Even though this was somewhat like stealing a bell while covering his own ears to deceive oneself. After all, once the heaven-decimating orb was used, no matter how successfully he could conceal himself, Yun Che would very soon find out that he came from Xiao sect. This also straightforwardly projected his dread toward Yun Che. At least, he was definitely not as relaxed as he appeared on the surface. But he really didn't expect that Yun Che would actually shout out the 2 words, Xiao sect, right away. His heart slightly sunk, but he started to coldly laugh right after. With a wave of his hands, a faint green-colored eagle slowly emerged behind his back. Yun Che, your presumptuousness is truly far greater than the rumors suggest, but I just wonder how much your true strength actually matches the rumors. With the howling of the wind, Xiao Wui's cloak exaggeratedly puffed up as his entire person swooped over as though a hungry eagle. Sword mirages flashed from within his hands, and instantly transformed into a strength of cyan-colored array of swords, shrouding the vitals of Yun Che's entire body. Episode 49 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.